June 6, 1944, Normandy, France. The water along Omaha Beach is stained red. Corporal James Mitchell watches in horror as his third demolition team vanishes in a violent column of sand, metal, and seawater. Another Teller mine. Another 5 engineers lost. The German beach defenses are destroying Allied combat engineers faster than bullets or artillery. Mitchell's commanding officer, Captain Robert Hayes, crouches beside him, half submerged in the surf, his voice straining over the explosions and machine gun fire. Their mission is to clear a 50-meter corridor through the minefield before the next wave of infantry arrives, in just 14 minutes. At their current rate of casualties, they will be dead long before they reach even 20 meters. The losses are staggering. Of the 16 Navy combat demolition units that landed in the first assault wave, 12 have already suffered more than 60% casualties. German defenses have buried an estimated 4,000 mines across the 5 landing beaches. Protocol dictates that engineers crawl forward with bayonets, probing the sand at a 45-degree angle until they strike metal. Each mine requires 3 to 5 minutes to locate and defuse. The arithmetic is brutal. They don't have enough time, and they don't have enough men. What Captain Hayes does not know is that 100 meters to his left, a young private from Iowa, completely unsuited for this task on paper, is about to discover a solution to a problem that has been killing mine clearance teams since the beginning of the war. And that this unlikely soldier has no formal engineering education, no explosive certification, and no reason to be anywhere near a minefield. His name is Thomas Becker, and before this day ends, his improvised bucket method will save an estimated 200 Allied lives. To understand the scale of what he is up against, one must understand the weapon dominating the beaches, the German Teller mine. It is the result of 5 years of focused engineering refinement. Weighing 11 pounds and packed with 12 pounds of TNT, it needs less than 200 pounds of pressure to detonate, the weight of a single soldier stepping on it. The Wehrmacht buried these mines in staggered, overlapping patterns from Norway to Greece, and Allied casualties from them have reached catastrophic levels. By June 1944, every Allied attempt to solve the mine problem had failed. British engineers created the Bangalore torpedo, a long tube filled with explosives, designed to be pushed under barbed wire obstacles. It performed reliably against wire, but against buried mines it was unpredictable. Sometimes the blast triggered sympathetic detonations, sometimes it didn't. The failure rate was around 40%. And every failure meant more craters, more delays, and infantry units pinned down under machine gun fire. American forces tested specially trained dogs. The concept was promising. Dogs could smell explosive chemicals and mark mine locations without activating pressure plates. But under artillery bombardment, the dogs panicked. In several cases, they ran back to their handlers with mines still attached. After 3 handlers died during training, the program was abandoned. French resistance fighters offered another solution: long wooden poles used to probe for mines while lying flat on the ground. This reduced deaths, but increased detection time to 7 minutes per mine. During the January 1944 landings at Anzio, this slow method cost the Allies an entire day of progress. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel personally studied the Allied after-action reports and issued new orders to increase the density of minefields along the Atlantic Wall. 1 month before D-Day, Allied engineers convened in Portsmouth to review every known mine detection method. 23 demolition experts, including Colonel Arthur Trudeau of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, analyzed every technique available. Their classified report, released to the public in 1974, ended with a blunt conclusion: no existing method allows rapid mine clearance under combat conditions. Casualties among demolition personnel are projected to exceed 75% within the first hour of an amphibious assault. The consensus was absolute. Clearing mines quickly was physically impossible. One could either move slowly and live, or move quickly and die. There was no third option. The stakes could not have been higher. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower had gambled the entire invasion on securing all beachheads within 6 hours. If the minefields blocked the infantry, artillery, and armor, more than 35,000 soldiers would be left stranded in exposed kill zones. German reinforcements would arrive, the invasion would fail, and possibly so would the entire war. Thomas Becker should never have been on Omaha Beach. He should have been milking cows on his family's dairy farm in Iowa. He enlisted in March 1943, 3 months after turning 18, and was mistakenly assigned to the 146th Engineer Combat Battalion due to a clerical mistake. Someone reading his intake form saw farm equipment operator and interpreted it as heavy equipment operator. Becker had no engineering education. He never finished high school. His technical military training consisted of just 6 weeks at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, where he learned how to dig trenches, build barbed wire obstacles, and visually identify different explosives types. His instructors noted that he demonstrated good initiative but lacked theoretical understanding. One evaluation simply read, "Adequate for general labor, not recommended for technical duties." What Becker did have, however, was a lifetime of problem solving. On an Iowa farm, necessity teaches innovation. When equipment breaks, you repair it using whatever is available. When a cow gets stuck in mud, you figure out how to extract it without breaking its legs. When a storm threatens to wipe out a harvest, you learn to work fast and work smart. At 6:52 a.m., just minutes after Mitchell's third demolition team is wiped out, Becker is crouched behind a disabled landing craft, watching another engineer crawl forward slowly, probing the sand with a bayonet. And suddenly, quietly, he sees a third option.
The engineer ahead of Becker is trembling, drenched in sweat, jabbing the sand in small, nervous motions. It is painfully slow, far too slow. Becker glances at the waves rolling in, then at the sand, then at the scattered debris from wrecked landing craft, fuel cans, ammo crates, and empty water buckets. His mind snaps the pieces together instantly, the way someone with a lifetime of hands-on problem-solving does without thinking. He grabs one of the empty steel buckets normally used to bail water from landing craft. It holds about 2 gallons. Becker half fills it with seawater, then does something that seems absurd in the moment, something that will later appear completely obvious. He pours the seawater across the sand in front of him and watches how it moves. Where the sand is undisturbed, the water sinks evenly into the surface. But wherever something is buried, a mine, a rock, anything dense, the water behaves differently. It pools, forms brief eddies, or deflects at a different angle. The change is subtle but visible. Becker pours a second bucket. The same pattern emerges. He has just discovered a way to see buried mines without touching them. Becker does not waste time asking permission. There is no time. He refills the bucket and advances, pouring water in a loose grid and watching for disturbances in the flow. 3 meters ahead, the water shifts oddly. He plants a piece of driftwood in the sand to mark the spot, then moves around it. 5 meters farther, another anomaly, another mark. Corporal Mitchell notices movement and crawls toward him, expecting to find another dead private. Instead, he sees Becker calmly mapping a minefield using nothing but seawater and a bucket. "What the hell are you doing?" Mitchell shouts. "Finding mines, Corporal," Becker answers without lifting his head. "That's not in the manual." "Neither is getting killed in the first 10 minutes, Corporal." Mitchell watches him work for 30 seconds. In that time, Becker has marked 7 potential mine locations, the same number that would take a standard probing team 20 or 30 minutes to find. And the pattern matches known German doctrine, staggered rows, spaced exactly 60 centimeters apart. Mitchell makes a choice that will either be celebrated or condemned. "Keep going," he orders. "I'll get more buckets." Within 10 minutes, Becker has 6 men running his method. They advance in a line, pouring seawater, marking anomalies, and moving forward. A combat engineer named Robert Kowalski probes one of Becker's marked points. 8 inches down, his bayonet hits metal. A teller mine sits exactly where the water indicated. 3 more marked points are checked. 3 more mines. Becker's method is working. Captain Hayes arrives at 7:15 a.m., unaware of the innovation that had unfolded in his sector. What he sees now is a group of engineers walking through a live minefield carrying buckets instead of probes. His face turns crimson. "Who authorized this madness?" he bellows. Mitchell steps forward. "Sir, Becker developed a new detection method. It works." "It's not protocol. Where's the manual for this? Where's the engineering validation?" "Sir, we've confirmed 4 mines in 6 minutes." "That is illegal," Hayes shouts, loud enough for nearby soldiers to turn their heads. "You cannot deviate from approved procedures in combat. This is grounds for court-martial." Becker, still holding his bucket, speaks quietly. "Captain, we're clearing mines faster than anyone else on this beach. Would you prefer we stop?" Hayes looks at Becker, at the pattern of driftwood markers, at the engineers actively clearing the minefield. Then he looks at the bodies floating in the surf, the men who died following official protocols. His expression shifts. "How many have you cleared?" he asks. "Marked 14, confirmed 7, 0 casualties." Hayes nods stiffly. "Continue. But if this kills someone, Private, you'll wish the Germans got to you first." By 10 a.m., Becker's bucket teams have cleared 3 full corridors through the Omaha Beach minefield. Not a single man has been lost. 43 mines have been detected and neutralized. The 29th Infantry Division pushes through the cleared paths and secures a foothold beyond the seawall. Combat information travels fast. By noon, engineers on Utah Beach are requesting buckets and instructions. By afternoon, British forces at Gold Beach are using the method. By midnight, Allied headquarters is demanding to know who devised the bucket technique and why it was never included in any official field manual. On June 8, 1944, Becker ordered to a briefing held inside a captured French farmhouse. Present are Colonel Trudeau, the same chief engineer who declared rapid mine detection impossible only 4 weeks ago, along with British demolition specialist Major Geoffrey Pike and 7 more senior officers. Trudeau begins immediately. "Private Becker, explain your bucket technique." Still covered in sand and dried salt, he lays it out plainly. Water reveals density differences, buried objects disrupt the flow. Visual detection is faster than probing. It's just practical physics. Major Pike cuts him off. "This contradicts everything we know about mine detection. The weight of the water could trigger pressure-sensitive fuses. What you're describing should detonate mines, not detect them." "Respectfully, sir, it doesn't. I've used it on 43 mines, not 1 detonation." "Anecdotal evidence," Pike snaps. "Statistically meaningless." "More meaningful than the 60% casualty rate from approved methods, sir." The room erupts. Several officers shout at once. Pike calls the method recklessly dangerous. Another officer insists that unauthorized field improvisations threaten discipline. Someone again raises the possibility of court-martial. Then Colonel Trudeau lifts his hand. Silence falls immediately. Trudeau is a living legend in the Corps of Engineers, a veteran of the First World War, a man who designed fortifications that withstood Ludendorff's spring offensive. Whatever he says next will decide Becker's fate.
When Colonel Trudeau finally speaks, every man in the room goes silent. "Gentlemen," he says quietly, "this private has solved a problem we could not. His method works. I watched it myself this morning. We can either court-martial him for being smarter than us or make his technique standard operating procedure. I choose the latter." Major Pike tries to protest. Colonel, without proper testing, we are in the middle of the largest amphibious operation in human history. We don't have time for laboratory protocols. We have time for what works. Private Becker's method works. Effective immediately. All engineer units will carry buckets and be trained in water flow mine detection. He scans the room. Any questions? No one speaks. The meeting ends. Becker is promoted to corporal on the spot and assigned to train engineer teams across the front. Within a week, his method is spreading throughout the European theater. The results are impossible to ignore. Between June 6th and June 30th, 1944, engineer units using traditional probing methods locate an average of 4.2 mines per hour with a 12% casualty rate. Units using Becker's bucket technique find an average of 11.7 mines per hour with a casualty rate of just 1.3. The numbers tell the story. Becker's method is nearly 3 times faster and reduces casualties by more than 9-fold. In the first month after D-Day, Allied forces clear roughly 6,000 mines using the bucket technique. A secret 1945 Army Corps of Engineers report later concludes that Becker's innovation saved between 180 and 240 lives in June alone. The method quickly expands beyond the beaches. In the hedgerows of Normandy, engineers pour water along roads to find buried mines. In the Ardennes, soldiers use melting snow in place of seawater. By August 1944, every Allied engineer battalion in France has been trained in Becker's water flow detection technique. On July 18, 1944, in the shattered town of Saint-Lô, Sergeant Thomas Becker, by now promoted twice more, leads a clearance team into a ruined village. The Germans have withdrawn but left a minefield blocking the main road. Doctrine says to move slowly, accept casualties, and expect losses. Becker instead has 12 men, 20 buckets, and 4 hours to clear the road before the 2nd Armored Division arrives. Working in pairs, they pour water, mark suspicious flow patterns, and confirm with careful probes. In 3 hours and 40 minutes, they clear 62 mines across half a kilometer. Not a single man is hurt. Lieutenant Colonel James O'Neill watches the operation. When it concludes, he shakes Becker's hand. "Because of you," he says, "my men are going home after this war. Thank you." Even German forces notice. In August 1944, Wehrmacht engineer Hauptmann Klaus Richter is interrogated by U.S. intelligence. His statement includes this line: "We saw American engineers using water to detect our mines. Our intelligence reports never mentioned such a method. We assumed they had developed new electronic equipment. When we learned they were using buckets, morale among our mine-laying teams collapsed. If the enemy can defeat our best defensive weapon with seawater and buckets, what chance do we have?" The technique continues to prove its worth. During Operation Market Garden in September 1944, British engineers must clear mines on the road to Arnhem under heavy fire and severe time pressure. Using Becker's method, they clear 127 mines in 6 hours, losing only 3 men, a casualty rate of 2.4%. Traditional methods projected losses of more than 30. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, not known for praising American innovations, mentions the method in a classified report to the War Office. "The American water detection technique has proven invaluable. Recommend immediate adoption across all Commonwealth engineer units." By the end of the war, Becker's system has been used to clear roughly 40,000 mines across Europe and the Pacific. U.S. Army analysis estimates it reduced engineer casualties in mine-clearing operations by 67%, equivalent to saving 2,000 lives. The impact goes far beyond numbers. Faster mine clearance meant faster movement. Faster movement meant fewer ambushes, fewer defensive lines, fewer delays. Military historians credit Becker's technique with shortening the Normandy campaign by 4 to 6 days, days that saved thousands of lives and preserved critical momentum during one of the most decisive periods of the war. In October 1944, Thomas Becker receives the Bronze Star for valor. The citation reads, "For developing innovative mine detection techniques that saved numerous Allied lives during combat operations in France." He is also awarded the French Croix de Guerre and officially recognized by British command. He does not attend the medal ceremony. He is too busy clearing mines outside Aachen. When the war ends, journalists attempt to interview the young man who revolutionized mine detection. Becker refuses. He returns to Iowa, takes over his father's dairy farm, and seldom speaks about what he did in France.
After the war, Becker married his wife Margaret in 1946. She didn't even learn about the bucket method until 1952, when a former engineer from the 146th stopped by their farm. "Tom never talked about it," she told a local newspaper in 1984 after his death. "He said he just did what everyone else did. He never thought he was special." But the military never forgot what he created. The bucket method, officially labeled water flow detection in a 1945 Army field manual, remains part of the training curriculum at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where Army engineers still learn today. Modern mine detection now relies on ground-penetrating radar, metal detectors, and robots, but water flow detection is still taught as a fallback technique when advanced tools fail. That redundancy mattered. In 2004, during operations in Iraq, an U.S. Army engineer unit suddenly found itself without functioning metal detectors after an IED blast destroyed their equipment. Forced to improvise, they used water bottles and Becker's 60-year-old method. They cleared 17 mines in 3 hours. The after-action report explicitly credited legacy water flow detection techniques developed during World War II. Becker's idea is now taught worldwide as a model of practical innovation. Engineering textbooks reference it as a classic example of applied problem solving. MIT includes it in its course on innovative thinking. At the Royal School of Military Engineering in Chatham, the British Army displays a photograph of Becker holding his bucket, accompanied by a plaque that reads, "Simple Solutions to Complex Problems." In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dedicated a memorial at Fort Belvoir, honoring engineers killed in combat. At the base of the monument sits a bronze bucket. Its inscription reads, "In memory of those who cleared the path, in honor of those who found a better way." Thomas Becker died in 1984 at age 62 from a heart attack while repairing a tractor. His obituary in the Des Moines Register mentioned his military service only briefly. It didn't mention the bucket method. It didn't mention the lives saved. It didn't mention that this Iowa farm boy, who never finished high school, who had no engineering credentials, who landed in a demolition unit because of a clerical mistake, transformed military doctrine and saved thousands of soldiers' lives using seawater and common sense. The lesson has nothing to do with buckets. It's about challenging assumptions, especially when those assumptions are costing lives. It's about the courage to attempt something new when everyone insists it can't work. It's about the power of practical intelligence over formal credentials. It's about a 22-year-old private who watched his friends die, refused to accept their deaths as unavoidable, and figured out a better way.
Some of the most important innovations don't come from laboratories or universities. Sometimes they come from a young man standing in the surf with a bucket, watching the flow of water across sand and realizing that there must be a better solution. Thomas Becker found that solution.